And welcome to the Jewish Community Center's 58th Annual Jewish Book Fair. My name is Sue Lutz. I would like to thank the underwriters of today's book fair activities, Nancy and James Grossfeld. Before I introduce Sabrina Must, I would like to encourage you to please stop by the Henry and Delia Myers Library table on the book fair floor. The library is once again sponsoring a program, Buy a Book for Yourself and Buy a Book for the Library. Please join us at our next book fair event, Jeffrey Zaslow, author of The Girls from Ames, which will take place today at 6:45 p.m. Must Girls Love is a memoir of a young woman's journey to understand and grieve the death of her eldest sister, Maya. Through the excerpts both of Maya's and Sabrina's journals, Sabrina takes us through the very personal journey of her sister Maya with exceptional perception, insight, and love. Sabrina has endeared herself to all of us at the book fair through this process, and before that also. Sabrina Must received a bachelor's degree in writing from Johns Hopkins University in 2008. In addition to this book, she has written the text for the very important book, Living Witnesses, Faces of the Holocaust. She was the most beautiful baby. She is grown into a truly talented young woman with a bright future as an author. Please join me in welcoming Sabrina Must.
I think I'm more nervous now that she's here. I wanted to first thank everyone for coming today. I realize 1 p.m. on a Wednesday can be quite difficult, so thank you. My grandma's going to give comments the entire time, partially because she can't hear very well. Thank you. It will be my second death anniversary on the 14th, so I can't think of a better way to honor her than by having this book debut. Also, to respect privacy and stay consistent with what is written in the book, I'll only use characters' names, just so you all know. I have about 45 minutes to give you a picture of not only what this book is about, but my process in writing it and what my intentions were in doing so. I remember occasionally attending readings from university and always wanting to hear from people and the authors, essentially, what did they go through to get their final product? I'm going to go on the assumption this is true of all of you. If not, I'm sorry. After I speak about that, I'll read a quick excerpt and then just open it up to questions. As many of you know, just as Sue said, Must Girls Love is a memoir about my journey as a young woman to grieve and understand my sister's death. When Maya died on November 14, 2007, I embarked on this personal journey of grief. I moved back to Detroit to be close to my family and to sort through the emotional mess caused by her rash decision. Writing, I always turn to writing whenever something is bothering me. And in this situation specifically, writing allowed me to express all my sadness and shock and anger, joy, disbelief, everything in words. It made me be able to make sense of my world that was crashing down. I wanted to understand what was happening in our family. I also was partly writing because I had this intense one-day-old fear of forgetting Maya. And my writing kind of captured all those memories and everything about her personality that I adored. It wasn't until January 2008 when I actually started taking my journaling, which I had used from her death up until that point, and started compiling everything about her childhood and my childhood and our family as a unit, and events leading up to and after her death in the form of a book. I remember finishing a yoga class, sometime around that mid-January point, and someone's saying, you know, I heard your eulogy, and you really should really use that inspiration to write an article for the Yoga Journal about how you've used yoga as a way to grieve Maya's death. And whatever he said stuck. From there, I was at Cranbrook the next day where I was beginning to sub and coach. And while kids took an exam, I started writing this article-type essay about just that, using yoga to grieve Maya's death. And when I finished, you know, I had this thought of, well, I really want to write about this, and I want to talk to my parents about this, and I want to interview her old therapist, and everything snowballed from there. Soon, Must Girls Love consumed my life. I wrote nonstop for about 17 months. For the first 6 or so months, I typically write about 12 hours a day. I'd wake up in the middle of the night at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. and jot down notes. And then I'd spend another 30 minutes in the morning before I left the house. And the entire 8 or so hours I was at Cranbrook subbing, I'd be writing while kids took tests or during free periods. And then after coaching soccer or hockey, I'd retreat to a cafe to write until about 10 or 11 p.m. For me, it was beyond cathartic, and it also kept me busy. That was kind of my coping mechanism at the start. The book starts in 1957 when my mom's sister Debbie drowned. I revisited this event because I wanted to understand what happens in a family when a child dies. From there, I deconstructed our family's dynamics. I interviewed anyone who had insight into what Maya was like as a kid, what her relationship was like with her husband, my parents, our family friends, her school teachers, her old therapists. I started to learn what it meant that Maya was bipolar and possibly borderline. I understood why she tended to act in extremes. I also became aware of how emotionally abusive her husband was. I began my own intense therapy to face issues that I, to be honest, had ignored and covered up for years. I also began to acknowledge grave similarities between me and Maya. What seemed to be in our family this pattern of self-doubt and a deep inherent sadness. By late spring, I had about 130 pages written. I spent an afternoon organizing everything into sections. I had post-November 14th material and family craziness and my mental illness history and Maya Matthews history, my coping mechanisms. From there, it helped me figure out what did I still need to write. Because the book includes my entire year after she dies, I was still journaling and writing as issues and realizations arose, but I was also intensely editing. As much as I write, I edit about tenfold, very obsessively almost. From about July 2008 till September 2009, I intermittently worked with about 3 different editors for different reasons. I was and am still so green when it comes to this whole book writing process and selling and everything. I didn't know how to professionally behave yet with an editor or an agent for that matter. I didn't know what to expect from them. To be honest, I didn't even know if I was writing this in the proper way. It was pure intuition on my part. Throughout the book, as Sue said again, I weave journal entries and emails and letters in and out of text. My journal entries, Maya's journal entries, emails between Maya and my mom, between Maya and her therapist, between her therapist Karen and me. I also included notes while speaking a couple of times with the head detective in Gunnison, Colorado, Dan Thompson. This either complemented what I had written or just brought up new issues. This is one of Maya's journal entries in the book. It's from October 31st, 2007, 2 weeks before she died, just to kind of get a feel for how present her voice is in the book. It's interesting. The fear feels endless, overtaking me. I feel restricted to breathe. I believe I want something. Matt is not codependent, but for me, it's got me. I feel like running, hiding, doing anything to not be consumed by the pain inside. The pain I felt on solo, as a child in the corner of my bedroom, in the hall at school. I'm worried if I am just this way, a way that causes problems, then I will lose Matt. Dipping into this, I feel debilitated. I'm consumed with it. It is all over me. The hurt and pain run deep. I freeze up inside. I will do anything to not have this there, to keep him here, to not leave, to manipulate the world around me so it feels safe and I get what I need. The thing is, I cause myself problems when I do that. My insides are like lava. It's dangerous to try to handle them, so I have to work the world around me, but it never works. I fail, I cause problems, I upset people, I go too far, I'm inappropriate, unaware, and pushy. It's as though I have a crying child inside and the internal nourishment is too hot, and so I go outside and try to make it work for me. I sell, I convince, but the baby won't stop. Nothing satisfies it but the inside nourishment, which isn't able to. I'm running around with adult knowledge. I do what feels good or makes things happen with the belief I will feel fulfilled and the fire inside will be put out. I run frantically around, searching for the perfect water to stop the fire, when all I have to do is stop moving, drop, roll, and it would be gone. What am I without the fire? It wasn't a month until writing this that I began to go to my journals and email accounts because I couldn't remember exactly what happened when we picked up Maya's body from Gunnison, for instance, or during Shiva, or really for the rest of December for that matter. It was, to say the least, a fog. There are certain parts of the book that I probably could have condensed, but I left them as is because I was writing a book about my process to grieve a suicide. Obsession and confusion over finding out the truth was part of that journey. It was real, and so I left it in. There are also light parts in the book. Humorous, anecdotal sections about my relationships with my parents, about my relationship with my cat, Po, or about reminiscing about my experience with Maya in southern Thailand and India. And I was also there with my mom. People naturally want to know what happens behind the curtain. How does a family really pull together, as well as how does it really fall apart? From an outside perspective, our family may seem very together and almost perfect. 4 successful daughters, all of whom have graduated university, all of whom were quite athletic and social, and 2 parents who are well respected in the community. But in all honesty, we're just as crazy as any other family. Within my family, there are numerous levels of closeness. I talk about how I was never really close to my sister Emma, and how my relationship with Casey was always up and down. I disclose my relationship with my parents, including how I adore them, as well as my frustrations, especially after Maya's death. Her death exposed everything that was ever covered up or wrong in our family. My relationship with Maya was a bit different. Did she drive me crazy half the time? Yes. But I also understood her. I think being the oldest and the youngest helped weed out any sort of competitive nature between us, and we built a bond of compassion. When I think of her, I see myself as this little 6-year-old girl clinging to her for security. I could rely on her support because anything that she struggled with, I did too. She understood why, and while my parents couldn't always see how their actions affected us kids, Maya got it. The reason I included a large section on my experience in Thailand and India with her was because that was when we began to see each other differently. There was a transition from childhood into adulthood for us. I was no longer just her little sister. I was also Maya's only support, physical support, in December 2006 when she broke up with Matthew for a month. One of the things I deal with in the book is the guilt I felt for encouraging her to stay in Colorado. My entire family wanted her to come home, especially around September 2007 when things with Matthew were getting really, really bad. And I pretty much said to her, if you want this marriage to work, you have to stay and figure it out, because you can't keep this cycle going where you come home for 3 months and it's great and he misses you, and then you go back and it's wonderful for 2 more months and then you're miserable. I hated myself for months and months for telling her this. I had no clue that when Matthew would tell her that When people ask me how married life is, I say that it's great, but inside I'm miserable. I didn't know that when Maya slipped up and purged in September 2007, Matthew ripped the entire bathroom apart in a rage. I didn't know that she'd walk around the house stark naked just to try to get him to look at her. How does a 21-year-old young woman deal with that and understand it? I had never even had a real relationship yet. When she'd call me whispering in the morning and I'd say, "Maya, I can't hear you, speak up," she'd reply, "I can't." Matthew would yell at me if he sees him on the phone. I didn't understand why he'd come to the police station with an attorney the night that my mom, dad, and I flew to Gunnison to pick up her body. And I especially didn't know until our first death anniversary almost a year ago that when Matthew exploded the night before a memorial service on December 2nd in Gunnison, he hadn't shouted at friends, but instead shouted, "She fucking deserved what she got. Fuck her, fuck Maya, no one's worried about me." It was all these things, including how my other two sisters were treating me and how absent some of my best friends were, that I had to try to process and cope with. Sometimes the coaching was a healthy way. Other times, when I retreated into my own space, it was not so healthy. When I started to fall apart during that year, I was mostly sad because I didn't have her there. Because Maya really, really understood exactly what I was going through and heard me. It was all these things that I needed to share. I wrote it down because I could not have not. I also don't know if I'll ever fully be okay sharing it with people. There are certain parts of this book that I still feel so shameful. It's like I feel like I'm in the spotlight constantly. And all I would want to do if someone comes up to me, even though I should almost be happy because that means people are reading the book, that if someone wants to talk about a certain issue or experience, in all honesty, I'll probably want to run away and hide. Most often I wrote about those issues or experiences after 9 months or even a year had passed. I never intended people to read my journal, and Maya probably never did as well. But again, part of my intention was to make any issue or emotion not shameful. I went back to these entries because there was unfiltered truth in what I had originally written. I met a woman last week while I was hanging out at the book fair who recently had a child commit suicide. I was thankful that she introduced herself and to possibly have the opportunity to connect with her kids because I knew they were probably just as heartbroken and confused as I was. And to be honest, many days still am. But when someone joined our conversation, she said to them in a whisper, her sister committed suicide. It's that reaction I want to change. I respect someone's sensitivity not broadcast private information to other people, but with suicide, I often find people are even more cautious. It's so hush-hush. I want this book to inspire people to not feel the need to hide it, or feel shameful or hesitant about sharing that. It's not a stigma. I'm going to read a quick excerpt just so you can get a feel for my written voice. I always enjoy whenever I hear writers speak to hear how they actually read their own words. It allows me to connect with a deeper understanding. This is just into chapter 8. My mom, dad, and I had arrived back from Gunnison. We brought Maya's body over with us. We flew it over in the airplane. There's a couple pages in. My sister Casey was flying in from Australia. She had not come home yet. She didn't know anything about, she just knew that Maya had died. And my sister Brittany had flown in the previous Friday night from Spain where she was living. Loaded into Mom's Suburban, with my cousin Jeffrey driving, Mom, Dad, Emma, and I drove to the airport to pick Casey up as a family. Hair braided in pigtails, wearing her army green khakis and gray button-down sweater, she was surrounded by us. The 5 of us stood, ignoring the fellow travelers weaving in and around us. We were absorbed in each other's confusion and tears, hoping whoever was to our right or left would soak it all up and be that comforting force we each so badly needed. Age didn't separate us at that moment. Mom and Dad needed to be cradled just as badly as I did. I sat all the way in the back of the car afterward, feeling so empty, holding hands with Casey. We drove directly to the funeral home. Its director, David, met us there despite the time of day. Sitting on the lounge chairs in the main lobby, Mom, Dad, and I filled Casey and prepared her for what she was about to see. Past the main service hall and into the back room, Maya was there. Not like I had seen her, however. Makeup again contaminated her face, her mouth was locked shut, her lips pursed as though silencing her. It was no longer Maya. I watched Casey hyperventilating, Emma hugging her, Mom desperately trying to remove the makeup, unveiling the cloth covering Maya's head in order to stroke her long, healthy brown hair she had worked so hard to grow out. Dad hovering in the corner, trying to hide his face. I watched emotionless, wondering what was wrong with me because I wasn't crying. Nothing left in me. Before I open up to questions, I just want to put out a thank you to my parents and my family. I know that, which you can feel free to ask me more questions about this in a second, there wasn't always complete support for this book. I can't imagine writing a much more exposing book than this. But from my parents specifically, the way I was brought up is I need my parents' support to follow through with anything. So, thank you. I don't know how we want to work this. If you have a question, just feel free. And I'm very open to answering whatever you want. Oh, no, I lied. I wanted to play a short booklet. Hold on one second. This is just, I don't know, I figured it was sort of fun to play this and just so you can kind of get a feel. Is the volume on? Wait. Can you? I know, but the volume. No, Chris, don't do that. I don't.
I'm no tech guy.
Hold on one second.
Marlon.
All right. Okay. No.
Just 1 minute and we'll get a sound on.
Oh, we played. It's okay.
Oh,
Yeah. It was more visual anyways. Anyone have questions? Yes?
Yes, how did you approach your family when you wanted to write this? You said there was not necessarily, how did you get them to support it?
Well, I'll preface this answer with they don't all support it. I never really approached them as this is what I'm writing. I didn't really realize I was writing a book until probably 2 months into it. I didn't even characterize it as a memoir until someone, had read over some of the material and said probably 4 months into it, well, this is what you could do with your memoir, and it kind of, threw me back. With my mom, it was that, that first article type essay that I wrote. Anytime that I wrote even a sentence, I'd call her and read it. So she was on board from the get-go. Sorry, Dad. My dad has never, my dad has probably read a sentence. And, again, that's just, I can't really even mention Maya's name to him. Um,
Yeah,
let me just finish that. It's okay, I just want to finish that. With my sister Casey, there was a lot of, the book was something to use as material for why we weren't getting along with the infamous kid's house that I live in now. We were able to work through the issues with the book with the same woman that we were seeing in almost over a year ago. And my other sister, she wanted to be private, and had, a couple of discussions with her. And it was going back and forth between, am I going to stifle my words and go with what she would want, or do something that I, A, felt like I had to do, and B, knew that Maya would love. Even to this day, I had a conversation 2 weeks ago. The book's printed, I'm in the book there, everything, and I had a conversation with someone, and there's still thoughts in my head. I would never want this book to destroy my family more. So, yes, ma'am. Sorry.
I just want to say that what a wonderful book you've written, and
Thank you.
there's a saying that a situation doesn't make you, but reveals you.
Mhm.
And you have just brought up feelings from your whole family, and your sister sort of writing through what your sister's thoughts may have been. And that little excerpt you just showed with her holding you up, it's almost the same thing, that you're on top and she's the strength underneath.
Yeah, absolutely.
She was more than our definition of what people are to.
Yeah.
I just think that this is one of the most unbelievable experiences. I don't even know why I came here, but I just think it's wonderful.
Thank you. I felt there were times that I would write a sentence or a paragraph or a whole entire chapter, and I was just like, where did this come from? I knew that she was working through me the entire time, so I did. Very much so. Yes.
Excuse me once. If you have a question, can you please stand up and say it out loud?
I can reiterate.
I know that we have to.
Did I do a research on any other memoirs?
Thank you. To see if you were a chapter, if you were like you felt very.
Yeah. I didn't do research per se. To be honest, almost for the entire year and a half of writing it, I barely read. I was so concerned with my writing, and if I was reading even when I was, coaching, I was constantly 24 hours a day thinking about my book, editing it, trying to figure out where do I put this paragraph, should I put it here, 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 where should this chapter go? I didn't do so much research. I wasn't necessarily concerned, had someone written a book just like this. I just knew that I needed to do it for myself, and I really, really hoped that people would connect with it. I did research, with bipolar and talking to therapists, and I interviewed my old therapist, Karen, and her therapist from childhood, Dr. Whitaker, and school teachers. So, in terms of research for the book in comparison, no. One of the books that I did read during the process was actually The Glass Castle, and the reason I needed to read that book was because right around that time, it was about January last year, there was a big section of my book that I literally lip-sync parts of my journal, so I didn't put any material about those issues or my experiences with certain things in the book. And Jeanette kind of taught me that it's okay to put anything that you personally feel very shameful about. Maya dying with suicide, or our family having issues. Every family has issues. Suicide happens a lot, but it's actually your own struggle. That's very scary. I mean, even now, it's like when I think about it, I just shiver. And so that's essentially why I needed to read that book. So in terms of research, not so much. There's a question over here.
I was just going to say that I couldn't hear the question.
Oh, okay. Anyone else? Yes.
How did you go from finishing the writing to getting a publisher, getting it published and out there? Before you answer, I just want to commend you on doing that. I know it took a lot of courage, and I think if it comforts even one person, and I'm sure it will more.
Thank you. That means the world to me. The reason I actually just self-published this with the hopes of being able, if it's in a book form, it's more presentable. I didn't have the intention to get into the book fair when my mom and I gave the living witnesses to, I guess we handed it to Gail Fisher. She read my memoir and then like 2 days later asked me if I would be in the fair and present. And I printed it with the intention of actually submitting it to different people just for publishing's sake, not really for readers yet. So I was, always editing it, so it was at a point where it was in print form in late August, early September, and that's when I worked with a printer in Livonia who was wonderful, and from there, part of my intention is just to get it out there and hopefully get picked up. So it's, much broader than just the Jewish community in Detroit. Anyone else? Okay. I guess that's it.
Not a fun time. Not a fun time at all.
Looks like you're over here. Good morning.
Not over here. I'm sorry, Patrick.
Doing a 360 thing here.
Sabrina
I do too.
Okay, so let's say hi, Sabrina. It's your big sister.
We're big sister.
Thank you so much.
I came from Florida to
Really?
this book fair to see you guys. Let me tell you.
Thank you.
I write too, but when I heard you were self-published, I didn't feel so bad. Since I've gotten lovely rejection letters.
No, I get them all the time. People that want
You're worth a lot of money.
Thank you.
And
We sold them. I told you she was going to print more, Sabrina.
I know.
We said for you to print more.
Dolly was
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, sweetie. Hi. You were fabulous.
Thank you.
I told your uncle you were riveting. You really were. I couldn't take my eyes off of you. Oh, yeah. Good heck out of you, and I apologize.
Oh, you don't apologize.
Oh, right, but yeah. Also,
Okay. I didn't know like you were engaged.
engaged, like 140 of them. They're done. Oh, gone. Outstanding, Sabrina's kudos. I mean, truly. I mean, it was a difficult and very.
She was worried about
Make more. How many people were in there?
300, honey. About three. It's
About 300?
350. I think it was almost full.
Yeah, I think so too. I was always. I walked in during the questions and answers, but I saw people sitting there crying. So you must have done quite a job in your speaking.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose.
Well, it'll be up on my website probably, so if you want to see
Oh,
it.
really? Oh, okay. Then I'll watch. Oh,
He
great.
videotaped it.
Oh,
I did.
Oh, wonderful.
He did.
Oh, great.
And this moment
Sabrina
right
Must
here, too.
It was very successful. I enjoyed my time on stage.
Yeah?
Yes.